Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Boston Sci-Fi Fest Classic Cinema Podcast. Last month, we checked out everything about superheroes and powers of superheroes. You can see that up on YouTube now if you go to the YouTube channel. And this month, we'll be tackling everyone's favorite red planet, Mars. Here to join me, I'm really excited about both of our guests today. They're both amazing comedians and storytellers. On the left, we have Wes Hazard, who is the co-host of Stories from the Stage on PBS and is also, very cool, a 3-time Jeopardy champion. On the right, we have Ken Reid, who is the host of the very popular TV Guidance Counselor podcast, which you absolutely must check out, especially Wes and my episodes, where we were guests. And you can also see him on TBS and NPR, or you can hear him on NPR, rather. So welcome to the show, guys. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so I've known from history or past history that you guys are both really, really into science fiction. And I was wondering how you both sort of discovered it and why you have such a passion for it.
Wes, you're first, man.
Sure. I can just say, like a lot of people my age, I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation in syndication. Yeah. Love that show. Meant a lot to me. I find that's true for a lot of people who, as adults, haven't engaged with sci-fi in like 20 years. A lot of them still were heavily into Data and Picard and everybody. I was the president of my science fiction club in high school called Alternate Infinity, which is another way to say I lost my virginity when I was 21. But it was a great time. Yeah, it's all relative, I suppose, right? Yeah, it was. Yes, I had a big affinity for it then, and then just by a weird series of events. My storytelling career sort of dovetailed with going to cons, like sci-fi cons. So I did some Star Trek cons and performed and attended. And so, Boston Comic Con when it was used to be called that. So yeah, just love the field, super into it now. Now I probably read more than watch, but a huge fan. And I think the possibilities are endless. Yeah,
definitely endless. It's such a great way to tell very human stories from in such an automatic, great flip of perspective. What are some of the things that you've been reading recently that you really like and would recommend?
The Story of Your Life and Others is a collection of short stories by Ted Chiang, who's the guy who, one of the stories in that short story collection is the story of Your Life, which is what they made the Amy Adams Arrival movie out of. I heard a podcast where he was a guest, Ezra Klein. I really hadn't heard of him before. I've been absolutely loving that. So that's the primary thing. And then in terms of watching, Matrix, Forever and Always, one of my favorite film trilogies. I'm one of the few people in America who genuinely loves the third Matrix movie and can do without the second. But yeah, The Expanse, been watching a little bit of Star Trek Disco. So yeah, loving it.
Very cool. And Ken, how about you? Where did your love of sci-fi come from?
There's a few things that I don't remember when I got into, because I think it was just from birth. And comic books being one of them, which is a great gateway into sci-fi. And television, which I was inundated with sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
I sort of backed in from the horror side. So your Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, that sort of thing. Star Trek was always sort of a bit too utopian for my tastes as a child.
Too many roof gardens and waterfalls.
Yeah, and people working together.
Yeah.
And ideal.
You got to watch Disco.
Yeah, and that sort of thing. Where I wanted to watch V, where fascist alien lizards come and kill everyone.
I love V. That's a great one. If you guys watch the original, do not watch the remake that came out a decade ago. It was terrible.
The remake was a mess. Yeah,
but the original is pretty amazing.
They didn't know what they're going for with that. But so I just started watching that in movies. I've always been a huge fan of David Cronenberg and the Alien films and just all that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you certainly know everything about TV, so.
That's not everything. I don't know how to get on it.
Oh, that's funny. I same ever since I was a little kid watching a lot of unsupervised television, Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Star Trek always close to my heart. It's quite a it's just like such a wonderful world for a kid and a teenager to go into, because it's just such a fantastical thing, and you feel like you're not limited, right? There's so many possibilities out there, which is exciting when you're young. But I've kept up with it, as have, I'm sure, a lot of you in the audience. So tonight is really interesting. We're going to tackle Mars. And so it's almost as long as they've been making movies, they have been making movies about Mars. I think one of the first one was in 1920. And then one of the first ones of note was a Soviet film from 1924 called Alita, Queen of Mars. And we have a clip. So let's take a look at that now. So this is Alita, the Space Queen, looking through a telescope at Earth.
It's very Metropolis.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, apparently it influenced Metropolis a lot.
It's also sort of vaguely Egyptian, and it makes sense that, that the Soviet Union would make a movie about the Red Planet.
Yeah, so these are the guys.
25% of their production budget went to pipe cleaners.
Yes.
So there they are. I think they accidentally went to Mars or something, but he built a spaceship, one of them. And the Alita, the queen, had been looking at him in a telescope and fell in love with him, and now he's coming to Mars.
So this
go ahead.
This is sort of that precursor to a thing like Planet of the Catwomen or like Queen of Outer Space, where like all the planets are all populated by just Amazon women. Obviously, that's the only thing that would be there, and there's no men.
Oh, actually, there are men on this one. Okay. In fact, she's like sort of the figurehead, and then there's a ruler who controls everything. And then we find out that there's this underground slave population, and they basically put them in cold storage until they need them to do more work. And so the guy from the Soviet Union leads the slaves in a revolt. So he gets them all charged up. Yeah.
And
I actually read the Wikipedia, and like he comes off a lot less well than that description. I mean, he kills his wife out of jealousy, who he thinks is cheating on him, but she isn't, and then flees to the Red Planet, and then kills like the queen there. And it's like that was a hero in 1924,
right? But also there was all a dream at the end. So I think they invented it was all a dream at the end in the films, I think. So he didn't actually kill anyone, but it's a pretty weird dream.
She's got a very strong Soviet brow. There's a real eyebrow thing going on here.
It's a capitalist brow right there.
I think it has to do with the gravity change.
So there you are. They're one of the very first. I also really enjoy this.
Oh, that brow's like Total Recall. That's why they have it like that.
3 movies?
Just like Total Recall.
Oh, so that was an homage to that, huh?
So that actress became a director and was the first one to win, first woman to win a Best Director award at Cannes.
Huh.
Really?
I did not know that. Didn't even realize it was directed by a woman. That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, so the Martians.
I just had to realize, like back in the day, it was like the mere fact that you're watching a movie was so futuristic and technologically advanced in and of itself that you really didn't have to stretch it to like make people, wow, this is Mars.
It's kind of amazing too that this exists, because the majority of silent films, the vast majority, something like over 80 to 90% of silent films are completely lost. And not only is this a silent film, but it's in a volatile country that had a lot of turmoil. So I'm surprised that any sort of print of this existed.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I know this had to survive through World War II.
It had to survive through Billy Joel in 1985.
Yeah, so there it is. There's the first one. Of course, we had no idea that Mars didn't really have a breathable atmosphere.
And that you would be vaporized.
Yep.
It's interesting how they take on sort of a this is like a very sort of Greco-Roman view of Mars, but all the planet names, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What a kiss.
Touch my lips like you do with yours on Earth. Yeah. That is the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. Wes, this is remote.
Yes and no.
Yep. All right. It does go on. It is very Egyptian looking too. Yeah. It's interesting how that the everything develops in terms of the technology. And as we gain technology, we gain a little bit and a little bit and a little bit better idea of what's actually going on. But I noticed that there aren't a ton of really highbrow Mars movies. I was kind of scouring.
I mean, aside from the moon, where we've actually been, are there any highbrow, really planet movies?
Well,
I mean,
feel
space. There's a lot of highbrow space movies, like 2001, Interstellar. I would definitely put in that category.
Even Ad Astra,
Solaris,
trying.
George Clooney.
Yeah,
Ad Astra was like weird, but trying. Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of highbrow space movies, but Mars,
I think for the reason why they don't have that for Mars is it's just so pedestrian. Like once you've been to the moon, like Mars is right there. Like we have the will and the technological capability basically to go if we felt it was valuable enough, but we don't. And I think just like once you have an understanding of the vastness of space and how things kind of work in our capabilities, going to Mars is not that much of a reach to like where you're going to question the nature of humanity just by going to our next door neighbor. So I think people have broken out of it.
What was that?
We do our best. We've all gone. No, it's like, but we've been to Mars. We have put rovers on Mars. We regularly see that, so it's not. It doesn't capture the imagination quite like it used to.
I think it does. I think what Mars sort of got a bad reputation. It was loose. It slept around. Everyone talked about it. Was that it was the first planet that they would talk about aliens coming from. Like Martian is the first sort of alien name that I know. I'm sure I'm wrong, but that sort of pops up in sci-fi movies at least.
Right. Yeah, they were all Martians for a while. It wasn't even aliens.
We had Venusians for a hot second if you were French, but that's it.
There's no Venusians. They're like that's not as popular like Jupiterese or even like Moonanites or whatever.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, Mars was the one that we picked that has aliens on it.
Yes.
So it was less about the planet and more about the inhabitants. And when we were talking about this topic for this episode, all of the movies that came to mind were Martians coming here.
Yeah, that's
so it
true.
was like Martians go home, Mars attacks, invasion of the Invaders from Mars, the remake and the original. The original Invaders from Mars also isn't only a dream movie.
Oh, that's so funny. So this movie is really interesting. This was made in 1960, The Angry Red Planet. You're going to find she thinks that's a tree. So she knocks off a branch and no, it is a giant monster, which is like the best monster right there.
Which is very Wizard of Oz. Like,
isn't that great?
Pick your apples?
It's a bat and a lobster and a cockroach. I don't know. It's
amazing.
Definitely a bat head on an insect body.
Yeah.
Sort of a monkey too.
And so this was done in a technique called cinemagic. Where they film it in black and white, and then they do a thing where they kind of expose some of it, so you can kind of see that some of the negative is positive and some of the positive is negative, and then they just tint the whole thing red, and that was in order to integrate the live action with the hand-drawn stuff, because a lot of the Martian terrain and creatures were hand-drawn, and so they so that way it made it look like it was coalescing. But I personally think this is amazing.
Yeah, that looks like Vasquez Rocks in Los Angeles, where on Star Trek, I think Kirk fights the Gorn there. That's where the bat and I think this is an AIP movie, if I'm not mistaken, pre-Roger Corman, 1960. And they bought a bunch of foreign movies like Queen of Outer Space and Queen of Blood and sort of retitled them and had some stuff reshot around them. There's a space movie that Francis Ford Coppola actually shot the ship, very phallic ships, in a new sort of wraparound footage. But I think Angry Red Planet was actually made in the USA.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, the actors were all American, but I actually really I got to give props to that because apparently it was filmed in 1 week. So that's impressive.
You can do it.
Yeah.
You can film any movie in 1 week if you don't care about the quality.
Yeah, I mean, AIP, they were constantly making bets with each other for what the shortest amount of time you can make a movie is. And Roger Corman won. He made The Terror, I think, in a day and a half.
That's amazing. That's a full length?
Full length, and it's Jack Nicholson's first on-screen performance.
Oh, wow.
And he used sets from another movie that was shooting, and he had Boris Karloff under contract for a few days from another movie, so just shot him with that, and the movie doesn't make a lot of sense. but it's a movie.
Yep.
Little Shop of Horrors, I think, was 4 days. The original.
Still really impressive. I've done the 48-hour film project, and I'm glad it was only 7 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Can't imagine a full hour and a half. Yeah.
Well, a lot of these were short too. Like they would try to keep them within, I think it's 5 reels of film, so that they could, because it was less to ship.
And it's all B movies, right? Like you're seeing like a real movie ahead of that, and then like you're sticking around.
That would be the other
this,
thing
right?
too. You could have like a 65-minute movie be the B picture, you know.
Oh, but that's why they call them B movies, because they come after the main.
You had an A picture, and then you had a B one after that. Yeah.
I never knew that. I was wondering. I thought they were like B grade, like or something. Oh, that's cool.
That too, but yeah.
Oh, very cool. That's neat. So the next movie that we have a clip for is Robinson Crusoe at Mars. So they basically just took Robinson Crusoe and basically just left him stranded on Mars. And it kind of follows all the same beats of Robinson Crusoe on Earth. And apparently at the time, it was touted as the most scientifically accurate film about Mars ever. And of course it's not. But at least they
not
knew
science
it wasn't,
fiction, science reality.
Science reality.
Which is notorious for how entertaining it is.
Yeah, but it actually was not science reality at all. But there's a monkey in it, which is great. There's a monkey in a spacesuit.
It's funny because
which we did do. We did do that.
Watch how this thing falls over. It's great.
Oop.
That was not on purpose. I mean, I don't think.
Yeah, by the 60s, they were sort of taking all the classic genres, which were like jungle pictures and explorer movies and westerns, and then just wholesale making them space movies. Yeah. Like this is a classic, it's Robinson Crusoe. And instead of a desert island, it's just space. It would be the same things that they would do. You know, Star Trek is a western in a lot of ways.
Right.
And it's
Star Wars, yeah.
You know, it's like Wagon Train or something. But it's funny how we saw everything sort of flip over into this genre all of a sudden, because it's stuff people don't know about, so you can get away with having green rocks and stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And I guess he could get oxygen by burning
from the rocks. Yeah.
There's a lot of water right there. That's nice.
Okay. Is that ooh. Monkeys are not good companions, I will tell you that.
Oh yeah? Have you hung out with monkeys?
Yeah, that particular monkey, which looks like a spider monkey, that thing will bite you. That looked like a reused shot from War of the Worlds. That spaceship. Oh, and then we get
Roman Man Friday.
That's right. That's
Native
right.
Martian.
Yep, another Romanesque. He's the escaped slave.
What was interesting about this trailer is there are no like Amazonian women. Like I was shocked by like, you know, knowing the background for this genre and everything, that like they didn't just put that really prominently, like, you know, the love story, because for an adventure film to appeal to like their male viewers, they always would. So it's kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah, it's wish fulfillment, but not particularly here. Is that the ship from War of the Worlds?
It looks like the tripod. It does. The original. The OG.
This has a very Irwin Allen or Doll People kind of like time tunnel look to it, this movie.
And I also just missed like old school trailers where they would just basically show you a quarter of the film and like you like every single plot point and beat, which they do a lot now, but like it was with voiceover and it went on for 4 minutes, which is you never see that anymore.
It is only one step ahead of reality, of present reality.
Authentic.
Saying that with an exclamation point is hilarious. It's only one step ahead of present reality. Like it's a weird thing to yell.
They just meant it was in color.
Yes. I was thinking about how earlier, Ken, you were talking about how a lot of the films that come to mind when we talk about Mars are the Martians coming here, is the Martians making contact with us. So
it's all communism. It's all just like a fear of the red planet, Soviet infiltration. Your neighbor might be working for the KGB. It's all just allegory so much of the time of just like these people that can blend in. You don't know they're aliens, right?
Right.
Or intentional or otherwise too. I mean, like if you go back to Dracula, which is not science fiction, but that's a movie all
That's
about
fear of like European, like
fear of
yeah,
immigrants. It's the fear of immigrants, like tainting, the soil. And alien movies are the same thing, whether it's like straight up aliens that are going to kill you, like in War of the Worlds, or like a misunderstanding kind of aliens, or something like Alien Nation, which is a pretty on the nose allegory for refugees.
Great series and film.
Which was also created by Ken Johnson, who did V.
I didn't know that.
So it's interesting to see when they take the tact of we're being invaded versus we're the invaders. And when we're the invaders, we're always trying to just survive. We're not ruining anything.
Yeah. Aside from Martian Chronicles, I think that was a kind of a commentary on us ruining stuff. I think we kind of screwed up Mars.
I mean, there was definitely like a touchstone there. I mean, this stuff was just like you can just. Horror and sci-fi are both the greatest mirrors of like what is worrying a society at any given point, because you can be supremely political without telling anybody, and you can just say, "Oh, this is just popcorn entertainment," but you get to make this movie that like certain people are going to pick up on. So it's like really awesome to be able to do that in the form.
I think even when they're not, even dumb people who make exploitation movies or genre movies manage to make an allegory whether they know it or not, because they're trying to make something that people will want to go see at that time, and they tend to tap into whatever is going on in the air, sort of intentionally or not. So to Wes's point, they're always a great reflection, even if it's not intentional.
Yeah, I always thought Invasion of the Body Snatchers was a great example, because they had made it in the 50s, they remade it in the 70s, they remade it in the 90s, and then I think they remade it like about 10 or 12 years ago. And every time it's like about a slightly different aspect of our fears, right? So 1950s is communism, and 70s it's I don't know if it's like, I guess it's conformism, and then I don't know, recently I don't know, maybe it's like
the Abel Ferrara one from 1991 that takes place on a military base,
right?
So that one's sort of like a little bit more of like a fascism sort of almost like the communist scare of the first one, but through more of like a late 20th century sort of fascism piece.
I think the best one was the 1970s one, in my opinion.
Well, you got Leonard Nimoy, you got Jeff Goldblum, Donald Pleasance.
Jeff Goldblum. I was just looking at the Wikipedia for Earth Girls Are Easy. Him, Jim Carrey, and Damon Wayans. It's such a weird movie. So weird. Like, how did that get made?
Well, and Julie Brown wrote it. Julie Brown from Just Say Julie, and she wrote it to be a stage musical.
Oh wow!
So she's
like the hairstylist, right?
Yeah. She's been trying to, and she wrote the Gina Davis part for her. But by the time they made the movie, she was too old to be that role. It was a made up name, but she's still been trying to get that as a sort of Broadway show.
That'd be great.
Years, and it's done, script readings, like staged performances of it, but just it's perfect for that.
Everybody who was in it went on to be bonkers famous. So it's just like it's weird that you see so many A-list actors who would eventually be A-list in such a low budget kind of quirky movie together in the early part of their career.
Yeah,
that movie actually was fairly large budget. It was Julian Temple, I think, directed it. Who did. Really, really famous for music videos at the time. And so I think that was his feature debut. So, and Gina Davis was really popular. Gina Davis and Goldblum had done, I think this was the third movie they did together. I think The Fly being the first. And Transylvania 65000 was the first, and then The Fly was the second. But so they
had a little money. I mean, it was no Brother from Another Planet. Like, let's not.
John Sayles. That's a great movie. John Sayles is fascinating. Because he would write and direct those movies with money he made writing stuff like Alligator and The Howling.
John Sayles wrote The Howling? I did not know that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
He used like $350,000 of his $500,000 MacArthur Genius Grant money to make Brother from Another Planet, which is the greatest investment of all time.
That's a great movie. I love that movie. It was that weird. This is totally off top. Well, it's still sci-fi, but there was that weird early to mid 80s sort of New York underground art scene sci-fi boom very mini booms. You had stuff like Liquid Sky and Brother from Another Planet. It was just really strange.
Yeah, Liquid Sky, I only read the Wikipedia entry, and it sounds bonkers.
Well, that movie is insane. They used to show that on Night Flight a lot on USA when I was a kid, and I caught that. Shouldn't have been watching it, but I was like 6 or 7, I think, and caught that movie and was just like, I don't know what's happened to you.
Very weird combination of stuff. I think I have to hunt it down.
Have you seen Martians Go Home? Has anyone seen that movie?
No.
I'm not.
It's based on a short story. It's from 1989, I want to say. Randy Quaid plays a film composer, and he writes a musical cue that basically gets the attention of Martians who come to Earth and annoy everybody. And all the Martians are played by stand-up comics. So it's like every stand-up club comic from the late 80s is in this movie.
Oh, wow.
And they're really annoying. Like, they pop in and they're doing their act, and everyone just hates them so much. And everyone hates Randy Quaid because he brought them here. And it's like,
that's amazing.
It's a really weird movie.
I will definitely check that out.
It's very
that
funny.
sounds funny.
Yeah. Barry Sobel is the main annoying Martian in it. But it's kind of a weird allegory for the 80s stand-up comedy boom in the same way that Shakes the Clown is, but using this weird sci-fi Martian lens.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Have you seen Invaders from Mars? Either of you, the original or the Tobe Hooper remake?
No.
No.
Oh, wait, no, wait. I think I might have seen the second one.
Ray Newman is in the second one, and Karen Black.
Yes. No, I remember that now.
I love her.
Terrifying. It's a perfect like childhood terror movie because it's basically about your parents aren't really your parents, and like there's this like adult conspiracy, and it's terrifying.
Well, what's the Randy Quaid movie where they're trying to eat you? To bring like the
Neighbors, Parents.
Yeah. Parents, yeah.
Directed by Bob Balaban. Bob Balaban wrote and directed that movie.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that movie's all about like mental illness and sort of the rottenness under the facade of the 50s suburbia. That's one of those movies where it's like an unreliable narrator, and you're like, are these parents really cannibals, or is this kid crazy?
So the lesson here is trust Randy Quaid in everything that he does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Randy Quaid is unimpeachable.
Not in the last decade, but before that.
Even more so in the last decade. Let me tell you.
What do you think about some of the remakes, like, well, not even remakes, but homages, like Tim Burton's Mars Attacks? I
like that movie.
It's very wry. Like, it's just commenting on like celebrity pop culture, and like it is political without being preachy about it. Like it just is what it is, and you can go along and enjoy it as like, this is like, yo, what's going on, crazy kind of movie, or it is really pretty cutting. It's a very, very like sharp movie.
But it's also a movie based on a trading card line.
Really?
It was Mars Attacks were a very popular line of trading cards in the 60s. I think there were these really violent. They were just paintings of basically Martians murdering people, and that Topps put out, and they actually did a dinosaurs attack as well, and they were very popular among that sort of monster kid generation of the 60s and 70s. So you're basing a movie around a trading card line that has no plot or source material, and with that in mind, like, it's an amazing feat that he pulled off.
So how do you trade those cards? It's like, I've got a disembowelment alien.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got
here's a guy getting vaporized, and here's the White House getting blown up.
And now we're going to make them into NFTs, which you can trade for valuable e-tokens. It's going to be great. I love it.
You can then trade for other things that don't exist. Yes,
those are the cards. Much like today. Yeah.
Those are the cards. Yeah, 1962. So early 60s. This is a rare one where the humans are getting the upper hand here. For the most part, it literally, and they're really gory. Like, if you look at the bottom here, that Martian's getting a bayonet in the eye.
Oh yeah.
What, Ken, do you own any of these cards actually?
I do, yeah. And they actually put out Topps has put out a series of books. You can get them as ebooks as well, but they're hardcover books of all their trading cards. So they have one of Garbage Pail Kids, they have one of Mars Attacks, Dinosaurs Attacks, Wacky Packs, that sort of stuff. And the Dust Jacket is like a wax pack. And they're fun. And for years, those were really hard to find. They were really expensive. And in the 80s, they had a big resurgence because non-sports trading cards got big again. And that's when they had the Dinosaurs Attack line. They're great. Like, it was this thing that kids would trade that they were going to get in trouble if like parents found them, you know, just like Garbage Pail Kids were, really. Topps has an amazing history of these kinds of things.
Yeah, it's amazing if you watch the Mars Attacks movie. It is the most star-studded thing I've ever seen. It is every single person in that is someone you know.
And most of them die violently in comedic.
Yeah. Which is fantastic. You know, that's the best possible movie to see.
The aliens are just hilarious. They're so delightful in that movie. And they do look just like the trading card aliens. Good job on that.
What's the 80s alien movie where they're like kind of robots and there's an arsonist who's trying to burn down buildings.
You're talking about Batteries Not Included.
Yeah. There we go. I don't know why that came to mind just now.
Spielberg. Yeah, that's a real heartstring tugger.
It's adorable. Those little guys, adorable.
And the line comes out because there's a guy with autism, or he was a boxer who's have a traumatic brain injury. And so he only speaks in things he's heard in commercials or in television. And one of the baby robots is born stillborn, and he picks it up and goes, "Batteries Not Included."
Oh, God.
Which is brutal.
That is brutal.
Did it resurrect the baby robot? Or
he takes it and they're like, "What are you doing?" They don't know what to do with it, and he ends up fixing it and the little one.
Okay.
And that's like his best buddy for the rest of the movie.
So how is this baby robot birthed?
So it's interesting. The two main robots that come to Earth, they don't know what they're doing, and they start like stealing all these metal parts and like building up like this weird sort of junk pile. And they're like, "What are they doing?" And then the I guess the female one like takes in all this parts and then kind of spits out little babies made out of like all this junk.
I have to say the salient point for me of that movie was how difficult and professionalized arson is. Because I think that's exactly what it was in the film. But if you asked any one of us to burn down a house, or like grab a can of gasoline, splash it everywhere, let it match. But like, there's a guy who's trying to burn down a residential building so that the landlord can like basically gentrify it. And like, it is really intricate in like the level of prep. It shows him going into like burning this building down. I was like, oh. And so like, that's the main thing I took away from that film as a kid.
But that was a real thing in New York in the 70s. Like if you looked at the Bronx and especially
Bushwick burning, that's where my neighborhood where I am right now. Yeah. There's a history of it. Like,
all those owners were like, "I'm gonna make more money burning this building down."
And then the robot showed up, and then it stopped.
Yeah, these were holdouts that wouldn't move because they were old people that loved their building. They'd lived there in New York since like the 40s, and Jessica Tandy had Alzheimer's and believed that her dead son was alive. Like, that movie is brutally sad for no good reason.
Very heavy with cute robots that fly.
Yeah, and are born dead.
You gotta love a good juxtaposition. So I think the last movie that we talk about is going to be The Martian, which is also kind of Robinson Crusoe in space, and is, as far as we know, pretty scientifically accurate, but it'll be funny to see in 15 years how stupid it looks. I think we have a clip from that. That's the Matt Damon 2015.
So I have not seen this.
Oh, it's pretty good.
It seems
nor have I,
really
but yeah.
It's fun.
Good that Matt Damon trapped alone on an alien planet, and not bad Matt Damon trapped alone on an alien planet, a la Interstellar.
Yeah.
Just like like within 2 years, 2 separate movies came out where Matt Damon is stuck on a faraway planet. And in one of them, he's a total protagonist hero. We got to rescue him. And in another one, he is like redonkulously evil. It's just such an interesting like contrast.
But was he really redonkulously evil or just a coward?
A lonely coward. He was a lonely arrogant coward.
Yeah.
So I got to make water and grow food on a planet where nothing grows. But if I can't figure out a way to make contact with NASA, none of this matters anyway.
We've got an incoming message.
Now, would this movie be interesting if it was the same movie, but he was stuck in a desert, like such an isolated desert that there were no human beings, but it was still on Earth?
I don't think, because you could just walk, pick a direction and walk in it, and like you have as much chance of dying than staying where you are. So
I we've seen a lot of those survival in the desert movies, like was that 57 Hours, the one where the guy fell? 127 hours, and just lots of survival movies on Earth that are pretty gripping.
But see, like again, I haven't seen this, so I don't know if this is the case. But like, is there an angle like Enemy Mine in this?
Oh, that's a great movie.
Hidden gem right there.
Long one.
I love Enemy Mine.
I saw Enemy Mine many times as a kid, and I always marveled at how long it seemed. Like, because it so much changes, like, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That didn't get good reviews at the time, but I think it was actually really good.
I mean, I didn't know that was Lou Gossett for like 20 years after I first saw that movie. Like, the makeup is amazing.
And I didn't know it was Randy Quaid.
Dennis.
No, I was making a joke. The makeup really made him look like Randy Quaid.
That's the only thing that would have made that movie better was Randy Quaid coming out.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting. It's like real, just step by step, everything he does to survive and how they get him back. And
it's an unusually high number of comedic actors in this movie.
Oh, yeah?
Donald Glover, Kristen Wiig.
I saw a couple others in there that I was like, oh, this is not a comedy.
Not a comedy at all. I think there's a little bit of humor in it. This is like,
this is like the second generation of 21st century Mars movies. Because remember 2000, we had like Mission to Mars and Red Planet at the same time.
Yeah.
Came out the same summer.
Ghosts of Mars, yeah. Last Days of Mars. Last Days of Mars with Liev Schreiber. Also, that was 2013 though. None of them were well reviewed.
I think best space movie or top 5 for best space movie in the last like 25 years. Event Horizon is like just such a good horror. What do you say?
It's Hellraiser.
Yes, very much. It's Hellraiser. Which doesn't Hellraiser some of it isn't it in space like all the
Part 4.
Okay.
Part 4 ends in the future. But did you ever see Screamers based on that Philip K. Dick story, Second Generation, I think, or Second Type?
I have seen the trailer for Screamers many times. I have not seen Screamers.
It's really good. It's Peter Weller.
Really?
I think it was late 90s. I also really like that movie Virus based on the Dark Horse comic with...
oh, yeah, I saw that. That was solid.
What's her name? Oh, my God. From Halloween.
Sigourney or Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of her, and like you have Jason in space, you got Leprechaun in space, you got didn't Freddy versus Jason? Didn't they have a space one?
I think they did.
No, there was Freddy versus Jason, but it wasn't in space.
Really?
It was after Jason X, which was in space, and then they kind of just forgot that one for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Leprechaun in space is the worst of those. I would say, just no relation really to the other ones. It was just like I love that when they do that, when they have a property, like a B property that's like kind of got a fan base and like, let's just take it and disregard everything that's ever come before and like make our own movie because we wanted to make this movie, but we can only get it released if we have the, the headline of this movie that there's already built.
A lot of times it's an unrelated script that they'll buy. I mean, that they did it with the Die Hard sequels. They just bought unrelated action movies and made them into Die Hard movies. But I love that your complaint about Leprechaun in Space is that it does not feature correct continuity from the previous films.
Which why did Leprechaun in the Hood too? I did a project for the Leprechaun movies. I've seen all of them that have Warwick Davis. Leprechaun 3 in Vegas is by far the best one, without like strongest acting, strongest plot.
The gimmick is great in that one too because it's Vegas.
Exactly. It actually has characters who are everybody in Leprechaun 3 is evil and bad. And so you just see them trying to screw over each other and it's just amazing. But part 4, they really tried. He had a lightsaber in it at some point. It's just, what are you doing, guys? But love it.
Have you guys seen the new Netflix one by Zack Snyder? It's Army of the Dead with Dave Bautista.
Trailer, and I really hated Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake.
Really? Oh, really? I kind of liked it.
Well, here was my problem. I love the original, and I wasn't mad that it was a remake, but I feel like Zack Snyder movies are pure superficial, missing the point of everything he makes. So like Watchmen, we took the Watchmen
oh my
comic
God,
and
Ken
used
hates
it.
Watchmen so much.
Yeah, like Watchmen,
Terrible.
we used it as as like storyboards, but it's like, yeah, but you need to translate that, which is what the show did, because that is so unique to comic book property that you can't just film it as like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And he's done that with everything he's ever done. So like the Dawn of the Dead remake, it was very superficial. There was too many characters. None of them mattered. The fact that they were fast zombies totally missed the point of why it's scary. Like, we all end up dying because we can't work together, and human beings have an adversary they could easily overcome if they actually work together or changed their traditions. But because they refuse, they can't. Like, that's the scary part of those movies. So if they're like actual things that are dangerous, it's just not as scary. And then also the really on the nose irony of like the song choices he uses, and it's just like dunderheaded irony that they're like, right, when the man
That was
comes
a problem.
around.
I will say I loved the Watchmen movie. I will say the music direction was lacking, very much on the nose, and yeah, pretty rough. Are they going to do a prestige TV show of Stranger to Stranger? Because if anything in the property in the world screams for a 10-part HBO prestige, several $1 million series, it seems like that one, like that is like prime to be explored, and it has to be in development. I can't imagine it's not, right?
Well, it's weird. Like, I think a lot of the classic sci-fi stories, like something like Childhood's End, which I think Sci-Fi Channel did a few years ago, or even like Last Man on Earth, which is one of my favorite stories ever. They've never done either of those right, but I think that the window has shut because there have been so many things made influenced by those things that manage to do some things better than their source material does, if not overall, but pieces here and there, that anything you do is going to seem derivative of works that were derivative of the original.
Right.
So I think that's why you haven't seen Stranger to Strangeland.
Like, the format is always different because like when they originally started trying to develop all this stuff in like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it's like it's exclusively film. We have to get this 700-page novel down to a 2.5-hour film. And now that we have prestige TV, which you can take 15, 16 hours to like really flesh this out and take your time with it, with a huge budget, by the way, I think it's time to revisit it. Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is like, yeah, I mean, like you're saying, Ken, like no super into film person today watches Citizen Kane is like wowed, like, oh my God, they're playing with time, this deep focus, because you've seen all that a million times. Same thing with listening to Richard Pryor's first special as a comedian. It's like, it's funny, it's hilarious, but you don't appreciate it as much because every single comic is like stolen from that. So it's just like, yeah, that's a very salient problem, but I would love to see so many different properties.
So Stranger in a Strangeland, for those of us who aren't that familiar with it, what is that about?
Super hippie, but also Robin Hyland, so kind of fascistic. Like it's like the late 60s. They're Martian life forms who are essentially immortal to us, but there are people on Mars, and human ends up on Mars as a baby and is raised by Martians in their society, which is much more enlightened, free love, sort of very, mental powers sort of stuff. And then he comes back here, and so he stands in opposition to the commercial, minded, fight, and like he basically starts a community of like free love and understanding, and
it's
it
influenced
like the slang. Yeah, very similar. Yeah, so it's like it was like a huge hippie novel, very influential in like the Woodstock generation. Like, if you ever heard anybody say like, "Do you grok this?" Like, do you get it? That introduced it, and like so it's like it's a classic. But I think it would do bonkers well, I think, in an HBO kind of format right now.
Got to pitch that, Wes.
I'm sure, I can't imagine there aren't 10 scripts floating around Hollywood for that.
Yeah. So if you so say you guys are going to pitch a Mars movie. Let's come up with the best Mars movie for like 2023. What do we think? Is it on Mars? Are they coming here? Is it both?
I would have us go to Mars. I would do a super throwback. One of my favorite, I don't think it's explicitly Mars, but Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires, which Alien took a lot from, Ghosts of Mars took a lot from. Something like that would be amazing, because that's a whole red planet, like hell world thing, is much more interesting to me even if it's not scientifically accurate. Or of another planet being our cultural sort of representation of hell. Like almost make like a Dante's Inferno, but about Mars.
That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't do realistically Martians anymore. Like that's just out. We know what Mars looks like. We've kind of been there through robots and stuff like that. So having any species there just doesn't make sense. Even though they did that in the movie Species back in the late 90s. Loved that as a young boy. But it was, I think now what you want to do is like, I would think a really good series would be like, you make Mars a penal colony. Like we're 100 years in the future and the worst of the worst go to Mars. And like, it's just like an allegory about the horror of mass incarceration played out in like a sci-fi sort of thing. I mean, that's something that I would love to see. But yeah, I think aliens in Mars no longer is viable. I just don't think so.
So like a Escape from New York meets Pitch Black kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much like, but like very socio-political, like actually like we care about the problem of mass incarceration rather than just like a backdrop of like, that's what I would go. But like there's a million ways to attack it, right?
I love that. Those are both great pitches.
I love that Alien took the sort of sci-fi view of astronauts being like heroes, like conquering heroes, and made them all just guys that work in an oil rig. It's a blue-collar oil rig thing.
That's what The Expanse, I think, is doing so well. Like the geopolitics of The Expanse is like, space isn't sexy. Like we're only going there so rich guys can make way more money and get resources. Like it's not, there's nothing noble. Like even like the moon race, going on the moon was entirely to show up the Soviets. Like it was just, let's just show them we can do this and they can't. And so like, I love getting rid of the romance of like
the landing.
It was done in a warehouse in Nevada desert.
I knew it was BS when that giant lobster bat thing came out at them.
Yeah. That's not what those look like. They're green.
Oh man.
What would your pitch be?
Oh gosh, my pitch. Mars. Let's see. Maybe it'll be a time travel movie. So somehow we travel back to when Mars was, because they say that Mars used to have oceans and an atmosphere. So we travel back to then and see how maybe things are starting to go bad there and how they handle that.
You know what?
I feel that would have a Planet of the Apes ending where you don't realize that it was a precursor to Earth until like the very end. Like they blew it up, but on Mars. But
it's on Mars. Yeah, you have no idea. It's not Earth. Yeah, that could work.
A major Mars movie here. Total Recall.
Oh, of course. Yes. I think we do have a clip of that, but we'll start talking about it before we show the clip. Yes, amazing. Is it a Mars? Is it all a dream, right?
But again, that's the thing about Total Recall is the fact that it's on Mars is like incidental. It's really about.
Whoa.
It's totally fundamental. It's just like,
the people just eating at the concert. This is when all the atmosphere shoots out of the rocks, right?
Yes. But that weird undertone of this, in that this was a society that was sort of existed before it fell, and then we colonized it. But this actually, their technology still exists to sort of terraform it and make it inhabitable, which is sort of in the same realm as like the Quatermass movies, which Ridley Scott took a lot from in the more recent Alien films. Where the twist being human life came from space, So I feel like invader movies of sort of space invaders in the future are going to be more like alien viruses or sort of like microbial aliens.
Also the Expanse going with that same sort of just like it's like if we make contact, like, so it's just basically that if we make contact with an alien species, like they get here, we're already screwed. Like the fact that they have arrived here and have interstellar travel means that their technology is infinitely more advanced than us. And even if they have good intentions, which we have no guarantee, we will just die because we'll be like Native Americans when the Europeans came here. They're gonna have some weird disease or whatever that like just they breathe cyanide gas, something like that. That just like it just wipes us out unintentionally. So it's just like like I believe fully, just based on the size of the universe, that aliens 100% exist. I believe that because of the size of the universe, that we'll never find them. But if they do get here, we are well and truly screwed. Like that's just
Maybe you are. I'm prepared.
We're gonna be all right.
That is awesome. Or they might be nice. They might be like the people who volunteer to wash the oil off the ducks when the Exxon, well, they'll be like, let me wash the oil off of you humans. And
Have there ever been colonialist or exploratory people who benefited anything?
It never go like either they are just gonna shoot you right off the bat, or just their presence will indirectly wipe out your civilization. Like,
what about a Close Encounters of the Third Kind? That was hopeful.
That was the mashed potato
E.T.
tower. E.T. we don't know, because we really put E.T. through the ringer. We don't know that when his buddies get here, they're not going to come back and
What'd you do to my son?
E.T. was E.T.
Part 2
child,
is a
right?
whole.
Yeah.
E.T. was the child. Okay. Yeah, that's awful. We did that to a child.
Yeah, and we don't know because there's no sequel.
Yeah.
Unofficially, there was that commercial in the Super Bowl, but we don't know if he left that whole family infected with some weird disease and they all turned white and died in a river.
Oh my God, it would be so great if they did an E.T. too, and it was just a straight up horror film.
I believe it.
Yeah. So you know what? In preparation for next month, I just want to say next month's show is going to be on hidden gems. So I would love, maybe we'll have you back, which would be cool. But I'd love to hear about what are some of the sci-fi hidden gems in your opinion, like your favorite sci-fi movie that does not get enough play.
There's a bunch of Australian ones. The Quiet Earth, which I think is actually a New Zealand movie, which is sort of an end of the world movie. There's one called Dead End Driving that's sort of like a teen exploitation version of Mad Max. That's great. Miracle Mile is one of my favorite movies I've ever seen that haunts me to this day. Those are probably.
I will say that Dead End Driving was the last film that I had out from Netflix on DVD. I just returned it like 2 months ago, and I'd had it out for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So Dead End Driving, place in my heart.
That's funny. I still have Project Chronicle out on the DVD from them. That's funny.
People forget they still do that. You can totally still get DVDs.
You can still get DVDs?
Oh yeah, it's not even that expensive.
Yeah. Wow.
I would say for me, Hidden Gem, I mean, it's not really, it was a bigger budget movie with like famous people, but no one ever talks about it. But like, I got to say, my favorite sci-fi movie probably the last 20 years was Sunshine by Danny Boyle. Cillian Murphy's in it. It's just like really, it's beautiful to look at, and the soundtrack is amazing. And it's just, it really troubles me that like, not troubles me, but like, I'm just a little bit confused why it just got no play. It's a sort of movie that like I think sci-fi people who are really into it would love, but also it's just got mainstream appeal too. So I
thought it did get a lot of critical acclaim at the time it came out, but I feel like it hasn't been talked about that much.
No one ever talked. You bring it up, no one's ever seen that.
Yeah, that's true. One of my favorites is The Hidden from the 1980s.
1987. With Jack Shoulder, Kyle
MacLachlan. I love that. It doesn't also get played, but it's so clever and it's so fun. And it's very like you really care about the characters a lot. It's very charming.
It's a great movie and is also just like a great action movie. It's similar along those lines. There's a movie called The Borrower that came out a couple of years later that was directed by John McNaughton, who did Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. That's about an alien who keeps taking other people's heads. Very weird. Meet the Applegates is a great movie.
Oh, the bug one? Yeah.
Oh, that was fantastic.
That's
Ed Begley Jr., right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I love when he's watching the porn and it's just like a nature documentary of insects. That was so great. That's a great satire. I love it so much. These are great picks. Well, I have to say, thank you so much. This has been so much fun to talk to you guys about this. And I think it's been a real treat for the audience. So again, thank you so much. Hope you can come back again. This has been such a blast. Everyone, you can check this out again. We'll be posted it on our YouTube channel, Boston Sci-Fi's YouTube channel. And next week we'll be back 1 month from now, and we'll be again discussing some more hidden gems. That was just a little taste of it. And I hope you can all join us again and again. Thank you, everyone. And I'm your host, Michelle Barbera. Again, Thank you, Wes Hazard and Ken Reid. And have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. I love this part.
I claim this planet in the name of the Earth.
I claim this planet in the name of Mars. Isn't that lovely?